This is the What If It Is True podcast as we look at our gospel, try to find that virtue, right? And try to live that virtue and make it look like something. What if it is true? We'll know it when we see it, right? And most importantly, others will know when they see it in us. And I think that's the idea here. You know, we get a big canonization coming up, Saint John Paul II and Saint John the 23rd. Goodness, yes, John the 23rd and John Paul II. Both being canonized this weekend. So that's exciting stuff as we look forward to that. And of course, the only reason why saints become saints is because of virtue, right? So that's what we're shooting for here is sainthood. That's what we're ultimately trying to achieve. And that's why the gospel messages are so important to us to guide us in that direction, right? Interesting stuff here. Recognizing Jesus, I think, is the theme of this gospel passage from John 21, 1 through 14. We've seen Christ come and stand in the midst of the apostles, and they not even know who he is, and they're like, okay, we got to touch, demanding Thomas, as they call him, not doubting, demanding I got to touch these wounds so I know what's going on. And then we've seen him on the road to Emmaus, and nobody knew who he was, and then he's revealed in the breaking of the bread. He's revealed to Mary Magdalene at the tomb. She doesn't know who he is until he says, Mary, he calls her name, right? And another interesting one of those kind of, oh, wow, I guess it really is Jesus, is this passage where they're fishing and they decide to kind of almost maybe, I guess, nostalgically to go back to what they know, right? To say, okay, well, at least we'll go back to something that at the very least will give us comfort because it's familiar to us. We can go back and fish. So they go. And I love Jesus calls them the sure children. Are you catching anything? Almost patronizingly in a way. You could look at that. I think it's fun. But so they cast the net, and what happens? They catch a bunch of fish. Then they know it's Christ. So I think that there's some interesting things when we look at all of this that, Christ is revealed in the Scripture and in the breaking of the bread through the Eucharist. We know that. We hear that. He's revealed when he calls upon us, right? We know that discernment is something that we can trust, and we can say, okay, well, this is the voice of God. So that's that, and I think that fruitfulness, we see here, fruitfulness is a sign, right? This is God. This is really Jesus in our midst, working through us. Why? Because this is bearing fruit, and I think that that's a beautiful illustration that we see here. So we want to have this fruitful experience as a Christian, and the only way we're going to do that is by accepting virtue into our hearts and living that life that becomes fruitful, becomes multiplied, because we're willing to invest our faith into Jesus, right? To find out more about What If It Is True, visit us online at realliferadio.com. We stream 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and also on our radio stations. That's what we have. Forgive me for not knowing how to speak today. We have two stations, 1380 AM, 94.9 FM. And then, of course, there's that companion blog that follows along as well. That's at What If It Is True, Real Life at blogspot.com. This is the What If It Is True podcast. I'm Leo Brown. God bless.